Whenever I see Brahms' Second Symphony on our orchestra schedules, I feel quite happy, because it almost doesn't matter to me where we play it, who conducts it, how tired I am. I know I'm going to enjoy playing it. It's going to give me great pleasure going from the very first note to the very last note of that piece. And it's very interesting to think that Brahms, for some reason, saw this piece as maybe the saddest piece that he ever wrote. Apparently he wrote in a letter that it was unbearably melancholic. And although it has beautiful melancholic moments, it also has such calm and such lyricism and nature and sunshine that somehow it is unique even within his music. Doesn't mean that it's the greatest piece that Brahms wrote. No, even amongst his symphonies, it probably is not the best symphony, but still, it is maybe the symphony that I love the most playing. Now, because of my particular interest in composition, I like to look at music, whether I play it or listen to it or sometimes write it, and try to understand how it is made and why the composer might have written it in a certain way, and sometimes also what I try to see what makes a particular piece of music sound unique and so identifiable with a particular composer. So I think I'm going to go a bit through the beginning of Brahms 2 and try to find a bit of how it's made and maybe what makes that Brahms sound here and there and so on. So let's imagine it's quiet and the cellos and basses are about to start the piece. Excuse me. So quiet. It goes on for a while. Well, 3 more bars. Let's think that's the first phrase. The first phrase. Then first and second horn. Okay. Again, cellos. Next phrase. Now winds, flutes, clarinets, bassoon. But up the octave. Okay. Then again, cellos and basses. Now third and fourth horn. Now you see, if we dissect like that phrase by phrase, maybe some composer could have written it by, that way, somehow separated in chunks, but that's not Brahms. Brahms liked to overlap phrases, so that means that by the time a phrase ends, another one begins. So the end of a phrase often in his music is just the beginning of something else. And because of that, you have that feeling of never-ending continuity, never-ending singing and big lines, so characteristic of his music. So if we go back to the beginning, I'll try to put it back together with that overlapping phrases, okay? So quiet again, cellos and basses. And by the time they arrive to that A, the first and second horn start their phrase. So and their last note is the beginning of the next cello and bass phrase. And this note is, let's say, the end of that cello and bass phrase, but is the beginning of the next wind phrase. And that note goes back to the cellos and basses, which is that note the beginning of the third and fourth horn phrase, which is the first phrase that was played by the first and second horn, but up a tone. And cellos and basses. And winds, flutes, bassoons, clarinet. Okay, I'm going to go back a bit here to do this wind phrase because it's one little note that I really like for some reason. So it's flutes, clarinets, bassoons, and they go to the D here, but the bassoon goes to an F, and I really like that F. So bassoon will go. I like that F. So continuing that. Now this E has already started somewhere else, is the end of this particular wind phrase, but is anticipated and then continued by the first violins and the violas. So first violins and violas, and then follows the smoothest legato descending line, which in a way is based on the same motive that started the piece. I call it the Once Upon a Time motif because it starts the piece. So from silence we have Once Upon a Time, you know, and the horns introduce maybe the landscape and so on. But it's that motif, the Once Upon a Time motif, that at the point where we are previously, the first violins and violas octaves on that E is just slightly altered. Why I see it related is because it's one note that we leave and then we come back to it, that we leave and come back to it. Let's say that's a variation of that motif, yeah? So when the first violins and the violas played, starting on that E, I can't quite whistle that. And that last note, hopefully that's an F. Okay, it's an interrogation. Yeah, where are we going? I don't know. Maybe Brahms didn't know either. So he writes a soft timpani roll on a D, and then the trombones and the tuba and the cellos have three descending, or for some descending, for some ascending, is a contrary motion. Notes that form chords. The last chord is a diminished chord, which again is an interrogation. Where are we going? So, trombones. But on this note, something else overlaps. The flutes and the oboes, the flute and the oboe, first oboe, play the beginning motive, starting the whole piece, the Once Upon a Time motive. So, trombones. The oboes. Then again a timpani roll on the D. Then trombones. And now clarinets and bassoons, the same motif. Now double bass, pizzicato and timpani, and A. Boom. And now it's oboe and bassoon in octaves play something that I really like. So we said the last three descending chords from the brass, yeah? Clarinet and bassoon, pizzicato, boom. Then oboe and bassoons. First violins. Beautiful, beautiful. But going back to that oboe bassoons conclusion, if you notice, that's just a augmented variation of, again, the first motif that started the whole piece, the Once Upon a Time motif. When the piece starts, that is in crotchets, now they are minims. So, and they resolve it to a D, but our ear doesn't really go to the D, because the first violin take over that last A from the oboe and the bassoon and continue it. So it seems like their note has already started in the oboe and bassoons. They have no definite start, the first violins, I mean. It's not a really nice thing. Let's say this G sharp clashes with the G natural in the cellos, because the cellos and the brass play a major dominant 7 chord, and then the oboes and the oboes and the bassoon, the oboe and bassoon play the G sharp. So it's that little clash, if you heard it on this piece of piano, between the G sharp and the G natural, which is beautiful. So is that conclusion, let's say, conclusion of the first statement of the first subject. And now the first violins take over. Flute. First violins. Flute. But other things happen, equally exciting, let's say, okay? Going back to the beginning of that amazing phrase from the first violins. When the violins play that D that I can't whistle, the third horn has a beautiful counter melody. So, first violins. And the third horn. Yeah? And then the flute continues that. When the flute plays that, the bassoon has a interesting inner line that I love. So the flute plays that, the bassoon plays. So forgive sometimes my out of tune whistling is not really my strong point, the whistling. But so this particular little tune, let's say, for the bassoon, it's not really a tune, it's really an inner line. But that's another characteristic of Brahms, that he manages to make inner lines very interesting. This beauty, they become, secondary melodies almost. Even sometimes when these lines are just hidden in harmonic progressions, chords, there is a shape to them, and there's a contrapuntal beauty in the inner lines in Brahms, which gives his music such singing quality. It's as if his music sings from all its pores somehow. Because this bassoon, little thing that I whistle, it's not really counter melodies, especially the conclusion of it is hidden among the other wind instruments, but Brahms has these beautiful inner lines, which means for us performers that it gives pleasure to everyone in the orchestra to play his music, because everyone in the orchestra has beautiful lines to play and beautiful themes to play almost all the time, and it gives us a chance, to all of us, to use our imagination and hopefully variety of sounds and tones and colors in this music, and at the same time we are still aware that we are just small parts of the greater artistic purpose, which is maybe the full orchestral ensemble sound. So what were we? The inner line of the bassoon. Okay, so that ended. Now we are on an E. First violins again. And then the first flute. But second violins come in, and cellos and basses and bassoon with their own version of that motif, sixth lower, and they, bar after bar, that little motif sort of imitates itself, which gives it a sort of a pleading quality. And on the second violin start the own thing. So first one is flute, cello, one after the other. It's just beautiful, you know. So going on. Oof, I'm whistling. So all this gathers force and arrives to say first climax, which is in fact the motif from the very beginning. Yeah. And while the violins do that, the cellos play this arpeggio motifs, ram pam 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 pam, ram pam 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 pam. Really hard to whistle that, and then the cellos imitate what the violins had just played, but one tone higher. And while they do that, the violins play what the cellos played just before, the arpeggio figure with the diminished down, the descending arpeggio again. So, and then the violins take over the tune. The cellos have just played another tone higher. And what happens here? The initial motif, the once upon a time motif that started the whole piece, gets what is the term in English? I can't quite remember now, but basically it's just reduced, let's say. So it's faster, the beginning, crotchets, but here if you understand, it's the same thing really, just faster. So but because it's faster and we are in a ternary rhythm, it turns into a hemiola. Yeah, so and so on and so on, and okay, I can't go quite as detailed through the rest of the piece because this video will never end otherwise, but jumping a bit towards the second subject. Okay, we arrived at the second subject after a short transition from the first subject, and now the cellos and violas have the tune. I mentioned first the cellos, that because even though they are naturally a lower instrument than viola, Brahms places them above violas, and in this way I think takes away from the maybe unwanted brightness of sound here. So and so on. That's the second subject tune played by the cellos and the violas. But one interesting thing that happens here, I mean, I don't want to say the cliche how beautiful this tune is, because it is, but you know, forgetting that, one interesting thing here from my point of view is that it shows again that Brahms conceived a lot of this music most likely while sitting at the piano, because the accompaniment to this in the violins is very pianistic. So the cellos and violas with accompaniment, I can't whistle, that is hard. It's a pianistic passage. It's just on the piano, really. And later in the piece comes in forte again, very, very pianistic. You know, that bit. Very pianistic. So another sort of feature of Brahms' music, that even orchestral music has a somehow pianistic quality to it. And maybe another thing to mention is the way in which Brahms doubles instruments and voices throughout his pieces, often more than other composers did before him. Not that other composers didn't double voices, but Brahms somehow does more of that and gives somehow extra density to the sound and more body to the sound. And also the way he plays his chords because often the bass is quite low, doubled by bassoons and sometimes who knows trombones, tuba, whatever, and the high part of the chord may be rather high spread in the flutes and the violins and so on, so it's quite a wide, usually quite wide spacing in his chords. And another thing I should mention maybe before concluding the video, because it's already getting long, is how Brahms frequently likes to, especially in ternary rhythm music, he likes to, but in other types of rhythm as well, but I find it even more often in ternary rhythm. He likes to displace phrases from the usual, let's say, accents in a bar. They appear, it is written almost wrong in the time signature, that is written. A quick example would be right at the end of the whole piece, the last movement. If I can whistle this. So it's in theory conducted in two, but it's not really in two. So you see, it's displaced. Another feature of Brahms, and his there's another thing that I just can't whistle now. For example, his vigorous rhythms, massive rhythms, ram pa pam pam patam ram patam, which comes in the first movement, very Brahmsian. Schumann does that as well. Okay, I think this video is long enough, and hopefully went through a few of the characteristics of Brahms, of what Brahms music is and what makes his sound and music be unique. And if you haven't heard this piece in a while, hopefully I inspired you to listen to it, or if you don't know it, even better reason to listen to it. And in any case, if you happen to be in Manchester, please come and see our concert. In a couple of days we played in the Bridgewater Hall with the Halle. Thank you for watching.